With the current state of Diablo 4 and even major content creators like Rax taking a break from Diablo 4, I saw this title of a video called Gaming's Biggest Tragedy, The Rise and Fall of Diablo 4, and recognized it's from the Comeback Kid, so I wanted to see it. If you don't know who the Comeback Kids is, he's another channel similar to mine that got a lot of growth off Diablo 4, and he had a couple big banger of videos, for instance, how Diablo 4 is redefining character progression. So when I saw this one, I saw the title, I knew this is a video that I wanted to take a look at and give my opinion on. So I'll have a link down below. Without further ado, let's get going on the video.
On June 6th of 2023, Diablo 4 officially launched, and it was an instant home run success. Twitch was booming, the concurrent player base peaked at almost 7 million players.
I did not realize it was that high. Almost 7 million players concurrent is crazy.
Partook in the ride. Everybody thought this was the game they were going to call home for a while.
True.
Now, there are as little as 400 people watching Diablo 4 on Twitch. Players are forced to complete world bosses and events completely on their own, and player population dropped by over 99%.
Which is kind of crazy. I'm not sure that these statistics are accurate, to be honest. I'm not sure where they're getting the numbers on player count decrease. I've heard this metric of 99% player decrease. I think I probably parroted this one as well, but I haven't seen where this is like official information. I would love to know where this 99% is coming from personally.
The economy between Eternal and Seasonal realms have been destroyed by rampant bugs.
True.
Season 1 content was an absolute disaster, and Season 2 looks to be the exact same.
Yeah, maybe we don't have enough info. I'm hoping the 5 in-game bosses have a lot of heavy lifting to do, if we're being honest.
How did this happen? Where did this once beloved franchise go wrong? And what will it take to fix it? Today, I'm going to explore the timeline of Diablo 4 from pre-release to what the game is now.
It's a well-edited video.
Grab a cup of coffee and settle in, because this is the complete timeline of how Diablo 4 became the biggest disappointment in gaming history.
I wonder if he's going to go all the way back to when they announced Diablo Immortal instead of Diablo 4, which started, that was really the start of the snowball, if you think about it. Way back in the day, they actually baited everyone into thinking they were going to announce Diablo 4. They were even giving like 4-sided dice and all this stuff away at BlizzCon, and then they announced Diablo Immortal, which that was the very first. Diablo 4 had bad press before the game was even announced that it was a real game, if you think about it.
Of course, I want to give a big thank you to the YouTube subscription members who keep this dream alive by directly supporting the channel. We truly couldn't do it without you, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later. Now, ever since the late 90s, Blizzard Entertainment has been a staple in the gaming world, making some of the most popular and beloved gaming franchises of all time. The Warcraft trilogy, StarCraft, Diablo, Hearthstone, Overwatch, and their most popular, the World of Warcraft.
I feel like I missed out on some of these OG Blizzard games. Like I never played original Warcraft. I played StarCraft 2 a lot, both of them, but I never played OG StarCraft, never played OG Warcraft, never played up to Warcraft 3, even though I played League of Legends, which originally came from Defense of the Ancients, right? Which I believe was a Warcraft 3 mod as well. I played League for like almost 10 years, but at some point I got to make the pilgrimage to go back and try all these OG games.
The Diablo franchise in particular was a real heavy hitter.
Yeah.
It embodied the true heart and soul of what the company stood for at the time. An incredible RPG gaming experience that is a mix of fantasy and dark gothic horror that many people across the world just couldn't put down.
I've got to play Diablo 1
2 released in the year 2000 and had a profound impact on the gaming world and revolutionized the ARPG genre. The social aspect alone fostered a sense of community among players, paving the way for future online multiplayer games.
What's interesting about Diablo 2 is that's kind of what Path of Exile is the spiritual successor of. And I actually really, really like Path of Exile. And I've only played Diablo 2 up until like Act 2. So I'm kind of thinking that I should go back and play through Diablo 2 in its entirety. Because if I like Path of Exile so much, I probably would like Diablo 2 as well.
You didn't have to. The game left a permanent mark on the gaming world by introducing multiplayer features, innovative gameplay mechanics, expansion packs, and DLCs that influenced countless titles that followed it. This iconic game remains relevant even 2 decades after its initial release, leaving people hooked to this day. By the time Diablo 3 went into production, a whole new development team was in place, and in many eyes, this time period was the beginning of the end for Blizzard Entertainment. With the game finally launching on May 15th, 2012, the infamous Error 37 plagued the internet, leaving countless players in
So, little known fact, okay, when Diablo 3 actually launched, I was I was working at Best Buy, and I remember the Diablo 3 launch being absolutely insane. There was people like out the door trying to get it. Every single one of our employees was playing the game. That's all anyone ever talked about. Diablo 3 was like a really big deal. I remember the Cash Money auction house being something where people were like, I'm going to quit my job and make money by selling items in Diablo 3. It was a big conversation at point.
On launch day.
This is a message to the people who work for Blizzard. Can't even play the fucking game! This is bullshit! This is bullshit! I pay money, cash money, dollar money, cash money!
The auction house, doing more harm than good, gave you the opportunity as a player to spend hundreds of dollars of your hard-earned real-life money on items in the game.
Yeah, true.
And this benefited Blizzard greatly because they took a $1 cut on every successful auction. And
I mean, like, I'm surprised. Like, I know this was like a thing that people talked about, but honestly, I'm surprised this is a thing that is not still considered. Because whenever people talk about, all the issues with Diablo and all that, they always go back to it more, though, or they go back, it should have been the itemization and blah, 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 and server issues. But like the real money cash auction house, when you think about it, is actually just completely insane. Like you could straight up PayPal your way through the game. And Project Entropia, or Entropia Universe as it's now called, was another game that I remember it was completely based upon your currency. You actually had like a debit card in the game, which was your real life debit card. And I remember back then people even thought it was insane. So the fact this is in Diablo 3, I thought it was going to be an even bigger deal than it was, to be honest.
Insane levels of progressive difficulty, it meant that if you wanted to progress in the game effectively, the perfect gear was just in Wallet's reach for nearly 2 years until it was finally removed. It took many years of innovation to bring Diablo 3 to where it is today. DLCs, seasons being implemented, greater rifts, and non-stop updates for nearly 10 years.
Which is crazy. The amount of like continual production that has happened with Diablo 3 is absolutely insane. Like they're still coming out with banger seasons.
With a disastrous launch and some fundamental problems with its core design, has grown into one of Blizzard's most long-lasting and beloved games that is currently being played and viewed as much as Diablo 4. Now, with 3 games in the franchise...
Okay, true, but it's also a launch of D3 season, and D4 is like it being pounded into the ground with everyone calling it dead, so there's a reason.
Under its belt, Blizzard was looking to announce Diablo 4 at BlizzCon. But with the horrific Diablo Immortal announcement at BlizzCon 2018...
With Android and iOS, we don't have any plans at the moment to do PC.
God, that
do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
Trying to build excitement for yet another Blizzard game is something that seems very grim in today's world. The once king of kings in game development has fallen very far from what they once were. They're hoping their heavy-hitter franchise like Diablo can once again spark life into the cold, bitter shell Blizzard is today. It all started with a grand announcement at BlizzCon, building hype and excitement amongst the fans.
This is what I was talking about. They baited everyone so hard. Everyone thought Diablo 4 announcement. I mean, there wasn't a single person, I think, in this entire audience that was thinking, oh, this is going to be a mobile game. Like, no one.
Easily being one of their greatest cinematics to date, the Diablo 4 announcement trailer left fans excited and happy to see Blizzard attempt and return to their truly dark and gothic roots of Diablo 2. Once the announcement trailer dropped, Blizzard was officially on the clock from the fans. And then, disaster struck.
More than 1,500 Activision Blizzard employees are calling for the resignation of the company's CEO, Bobby Kotick.
That Kotick had known about things.
If you think about it, Blizzard has had a pretty rough few years in bad PR. We had Immortal. We had this, the misconduct situation. Diablo 4, and then we have the Overwatch 2 is the worst reviewed game of all time on Steam. Like, they cannot stop taking back-to-back L's.
And he also had threatened to have an assistant killed at one point.
The company began to truly unravel midway through the development in 2021, with a major lawsuit against Activision Blizzard being filed for a near 2-year running investigation into the company from the state of California. Between the sexual allegations, unfair and unethical treatment toward women in the workplace, and more dark, evil secrets being surfaced, hundreds of employees at Blizzard walk out to protest against this frat boy culture and even more quit or step down from the company, leaving everything in disarray. And Diablo 4 was no exception to this. The ongoing sexual harassment lawsuit took a major toll on Blizzard, and the company bled high-quality developers and talent rapidly. In Blizzard's earning report for investors, they clearly stated that it has become apparent that some of the Blizzard content planned for the next year will benefit from more development time to reach its full potential.
I think this is exactly what happened with Diablo 4. Like, in my opinion, Diablo 4 was a situation where it needed 6 more months to cook, probably minimum, because I think Season 2 will have some decent content, but it's still not going to be 100% complete. By Season 3, in my opinion, it needs to be 100% complete. We need everything that the game was basically required to have to be entertaining on the end game by Season 3 in order to keep like any percentage of the people, or else we're just going to lose basically everybody. I think Season 2, they're going to have some of the content, but I would expect by Season 3 that everything they wanted the game to have on launch would be there. I think it literally got released because there was a timeline. They had to get the thing out. I don't think it's completed, and I think some of this has to do with why.
They also said they need extra time to complete production and continue growing their creative resources to support the titles after
I think
launch.
that's exactly what's going
Though
on.
not stated explicitly, the wording in the report implies that neither Overwatch 2 or Diablo 4 will launch before 2023. So with no other option, Diablo 4 was officially delayed. For a while during this time, Blizzard did what they do best: feed and prey off the nostalgia of previous games from their fans. The nostalgia of the great times this company...
To be fair, though, like, he's right about feeding off the nostalgia. I feel like preying off the nostalgia is like a little bit... Well, maybe like in more, though, sure. But I feel like some of these... I don't mind buying nostalgia products personally. Like I bought even though I didn't play the original D2, like I bought the remastered and the Reforged Warcraft. I'd probably buy that. I don't mind rebuying a game I originally did, as long as the updates are significant enough, or at least a reason to get it. I don't mind nostalgia products too bad. I know some people have
went
split
down the
opinions on
line
this,
and
but...
re-released titles of all their beloved games. Classic World of Warcraft, which led to what is now
Which, by the way, is fire. Like, I actually think Classic WoW is actually dope. Like, I don't mind replaying that one at all.
release of the Wrath of the Lich King. Warcraft Reforged, which is a convoluted disaster. And finally,
Is it really that
Diablo 2
bad?
Resurrected. They knew that by releasing these games, it would make them hundreds of millions of dollars and give them more time to try and develop something new that the fans would come to love once again. But time and time after, they fail to follow through with that promise and always come up short. With the new day and age of Blizzard's monetization, where they squeeze everything they can take, it finally took its toll. Classic era of World of Warcraft having expansion pack passes, character boosts, and now a new WoW token across expansions, where you can literally buy gold with real-life money.
Yeah, they do this in RuneScape too, called Bonds, and I definitely have bought Bonds in RuneScape. And the way I feel about this stuff is, if it's sold from the company, it's okay, but it definitely ruins the integrity of the game. Like, I would prefer there to be no way to purchase anything that affects gameplay in any way, particularly in MMOs. Because I feel like the building of the character is the process in which makes the game the most enjoyable and gives like respect to the person who built the character. You look at somebody else, you're like, this guy's got a badass character, but it's kind of invalidated if you can go to the auction house and just like wail out, which is part of the reason that when I saw D3 have the auction house, I was like actually extremely surprised. Even back then when I wasn't like into it as much, as I am now, a little bit more into the culture of the gaming, but even back then I was like kind of surprised.
Overwatch 2 being a copy of Overwatch 1 with egregious monetization and broken promises of new content and story that never came to light.
Overwatch 2, I don't know what happened with Overwatch 2. Like, I actually like Overwatch. I'm one of those people that actually liked Overwatch. I didn't dunk on Overwatch. Everyone else I knew was dunking on Overwatch, and it was a trash game. I actually kind of liked the game. And then Overwatch 2, I kind of liked as well. But for me, when I was playing Overwatch 2, it just felt... I felt like I was playing the same game I thought. Like, it just felt exactly the same minus a character. That I didn't see like almost any different. I actually could not tell you what the differences are between Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2, other than there's 5 characters instead of 6 now in the match, if I remember correctly. That's the only thing I know. And I played it for like dozens of hours.
At this point in time, it seems as if the company continues to make the wrong decisions based on greed and simply takes advantage of its player base across every game they've ever developed. We had no choice.
You know what's crazy though about Immortal is I'll stand by this because I've played Immortal long enough to know Immortal got more content in it than D4. I know that's going to spin some heads, and yes, I know pay to win ruins the game. Yes, we all agree. I'm talking from things to do in the game. Immortal literally has more stuff to do D4. It's not even close, and they're adding new content on a monthly basis, not a 3-monthly basis. Okay, and people were still complaining Immortal there wasn't enough to do. I was one of them, but the reality is, Immortal has even on launch, Immortal has more to do than D4 does now, and they've continued to add in more, where Immortal actually has like there's actually a significant amount of content you can go through in that game. No one will ever like the game because of the pay to win behind it and the really bad PR, which is justifiable, but like it legitimately has a pretty good amount of content, and more content than D4.
The only thing we can do now is hope that Diablo 4 doesn't follow this sad and beat down pattern. And for many others, including myself, this would be Blizzard's last chance at repairing what is a betrayed and broken relationship between us and what used to be a magical company.
So stop holding out hope that Blizzard is going to come back. Everyone who founded Blizzard, all the principles that Blizzard was founded on, are dead. They've been desecrated. Let Blizzard go.
What's crazy is I feel like people don't even... Like, people would give Blizzard another chance if they ever deliver, and I feel like people continually do give them another chance. Like, Diablo 4 sold more than anything else ever, right? People are giving the Diablo franchise a chance again, but then it, once again, under-delivered. So, eventually, people are going to stop doing it. But, I mean, as it stands currently, it's a little bit of a bummer, because I think people kind of expected Diablo 4 to be significantly more, you know what I mean, than it ended up being, and people were giving it another chance. So this whole, like, you know, Blizzard has no more chances thing, like, I actually think they have a lot more chance. I'll be honest, I think they have a lot more chances. They could come out with World of Warcraft 2.0 and like everyone and their mom would download it.
That's my main message, is let Blizzard go. Appreciate what was created back when it was done. Stop holding out hope that it's gonna come back, because
the name carries a lot of weight.
It's not.
Hope. Hope is all that remains. In August of 2022, Blizzard announced their Diablo 4 alpha playtest, running for friends and family of Blizzard employees. Jason Schreier, a Bloomberg reporter, states on Twitter, "A bunch of people are playing an early build of Diablo 4 right now thanks to a friends and family alpha test. These players are under NDA,
I never
but
got in that.
Mostly positive buzz."
I never even heard there was a friends and
Schreier
family
also
one.
noted that there are no microtransactions in the alpha build, so players won't have much of an idea what to expect from monetization. Although, Blizzard has previously confirmed that small Diablo 4 purchases will be cosmetic only.
You know what was interesting is, people don't believe Blizzard anymore, what they say, because all the way up to the launch of D4, we were having even other major content creators say they think Diablo 4 is going to be pay to win, or there's a potential of it. I even made the video myself saying there's a potential for pay to win, because the way they explained something was very poor, and I took the video down when they reclarified. But because of Immortal, they lost so much like credit with the people that some people did, but like the majority of the conversation I was seeing was people were saying, yeah, Diablo 4 would be pay to win. Like, just watch, they're going to put pay to win in. Of course it wasn't, because they promised up and down and up and down. If they put pay to win in it, my God, this would have been like the biggest drama of all time. But a lot of people thought it was actually going to be pay to win all the way up to release.
Larger story expansions. Months later, the Diablo 4 endgame beta invites go out in October of 2022, and the playtest officially begins. The playtest itself gave lucky testers a chance to go up against Lilith in the post-campaign Sanctuary and test out Diablo 4's endgame modes and instances. This included the Whispers of the Dead system, the progressively challenging Nightmare dungeons, region-wide Hell Tides, the Fields of Hatred PvP, and the Paragon board progression system. This was the only endgame test they hosted before launch, with enough time to make changes.
This one I did test.
And this is going to be important and a big conversation topic later. A couple months after that, a massive article comes out on the Washington Post stating that Diablo 4 developers are working overtime to meet the release deadline, and it also includes their own staff, stating there is mismanagement and disturbing script changes that might contribute to delays. It's a process that's been plagued by mismanagement and employees being promised perks for working late evenings and weekends outside of regular work hours, but employees stating they were simply negligible perks, such as a $25 DoorDash credit if they worked more than 10 hours.
Oh my God, what? What are you talking about, guys? Oh, that can't be a real thing. Is that a real thing? $25 car if you work 10 hours a day? Oh, get out of here.
They described a mounting sense of dissatisfaction and malice amongst employees as they endured leadership change constantly, and that the Diablo team has been losing talent for over a year as employees look for more competitive wages and better work conditions elsewhere.
Yeah, why wouldn't they? Look, if you can get better pay and be treated better by a better boss somewhere else, you'd be an idiot not to leave. I'd say go do it, man. Who cares if you're going to make a better game for people like me? Like, go take care of yourself.
Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick attributed the company's stock price drop to the game delay of Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2 rather than the ongoing sexual harassment lawsuits.
Of course, you think the guy's going to go up there and say sexual harassment lawsuits are the reason our stock's going down? Like, come on. He's going to name drop his products that are upcoming. Like, come on.
Suit filed against the company in July of 2021. He quotes, "I think what affected the stock price more than the sexual harassment investigation is pushing out the release dates of Overwatch 2 and Diablo 4. His comments frustrated some of the company's developers who felt he was blaming them unfairly, stating, "We felt very much like he just drove the bus over on top of us." As you can see, the relationship and chemistry within the company seems to begin crumbling. A person familiar with senior leadership found the performance shares unnecessary and even destructive, arguing that they incentivize leadership to cut corners, compromise, and ship products that are not ready to be released instead of doing what is the best thing for the long-term value creation. Employees state,
"Look, I'm not an expert or anything on what's going on in there, but I'll tell you this. The Blizzard employees who I have met were great people, and I only ever got the impression, not because anything they said, but only just my general impression of being there, that every single Blizzard dev employee I met that was like an actual dev for a game seemed to give a fuck about their game. They all seem to give a fuck about their game, which makes me think, and I mean, I'm talking real passion, not like it seems like they're BSing me. My take of this would be this is a leadership issue. I've always said this. I think the devs are fine. I think people are trying to make a good game. If they're having a problem, it's going to be from basically the producing side. I don't think it would be anything else. And I think that's kind of what he's getting into here.
They just went to work every day and got angry, either because the tools were slow or they simply did not like the game that much. They also stated that it wasn't just employees that left. It was many with institutional knowledge and decades of experience, leaving brand new employees and developers brought in from elsewhere to fill in. Diablo 4's unannounced internal release date went from 2021 to December of 2022, then got pushed back further to April 2023, and then finally June of 2023.
And it's still too early. I'll be honest, it's still too early.
A former employee stated, "We're at the point where they're not willing to delay the game anymore. So we all just have to go along and figure out how much we're willing to hurt ourselves to make sure the game gets released in a good enough state."
Yeah, that's not a good
Diablo
line.
4 get over the finish line, Activision Blizzard enlisted industry veterans such as Rod Ferguson. Rod would hold weekly Zoom meetings known as Rodcasts, which during them he would talk about celebrities he's met and movies he enjoys. Employees felt that not much actually came out of these discussions, stating, "To me, he came off as a bit of a clout chaser about where he came from, like Gears of War. We all thought he was going to come in and fix the game. And when nothing happened, that's when you started to see this massive turnover." The Blizzard Entertainment company that was once so dedicated to quality and putting out the best product they possibly can is currently rushing out Diablo 4 in a good enough state, with employees and team members.
Yeah, but it's not good enough is the problem. Like, even though that's my issue is like, look, if they had rushed down a good enough state, then good enough means, okay, that would have been good enough, but it's not good enough. Like, it's obviously not good. We're losing all the players. Everyone's complaining about it. Every single video is negative. Like, look, I'm going to put it this way, guys. Like, if someone like Rax, who I mentioned in the beginning of this video, if someone like Rax is quitting Diablo 4 to go play like Last Epoch, there's a problem. Like, you have, the Max Row dudes are dudes who have been in the Diablo franchise forever. I mean, forever. They were making guides for everybody forever. Okay? All nice guys, by the way. I talked to a good amount. They're all great dudes over there, and they've been grinding builds for the... So you think that they... I mean, I get someone like me who makes a new channel, pops up, moves over the variety on Twitch, and I'm just having a good time playing games. It makes sense for me to pop out when, you know, there's nothing going on for D4. But these guys have been grinding like the game since day one. You know what I mean? Like they have a website based on all that. When those guys don't see value in continuing to produce Diablo 4 content and they move on to other Diablos or completely other franchises, there is a major issue. It is arguable it's not in a good enough state.
Members who don't get along, and leaders who are poor at taking care of their team members. All of this inside of an environment that is polluted with greed and numbers more than anything. With launch just a few months away, Diablo 4 is looking grim. On February 21st, the developers officially released the Inside the World of Sanctuary video, where they had many developers speak upon the art direction, environment, monsters, gameplay innovations, and world building. They made promises and stated they wanted to bring the game back toward Diablo 2.
We wanted to bring Diablo 4 artistically more back towards like Diablo 2, the much darker style.
And they also emphasize non-repetitive gameplay features.
So you never feel like you're always doing the same thing. The pacing is always a little bit different.
On March 1st, they
That can't be further from the truth, though. The only thing you do is Nightmare Dungeons.
released a video showing the gameplay trailer for the beta early access of Diablo 4, announcing that you could play the game on March 17th through March 19th if you pre-purchase the $90 Digital Deluxe or $100 Ultimate Edition of the game. The $100 Ultimate Edition gives you the advantage to play up to 4 days early over everyone else, the accelerated seasonal battle pass unlock, mounts, cosmetics, emotes, and even rewards for their other Blizzard games such as World of Warcraft, Diablo Immortal, and Diablo 3. By this point, it is very well known that Diablo 4 was going to have a battle pass that was cosmetic only and a big reward for buying this
Which,
set of—
by the way, I still stand by this. Everyone freaked out about this battle pass so much, and this battle pass does not matter. I have never once wore any of the cosmetics that were the paid ones from the battle pass, and I have them all. Like, I don't see why people were still freaking out about this. The only part of which this could be an issue is if those ashes on the battle pass, which was probably the original design, by the way, I bet they reverted it, but those ashes on the battle pass, if you could actually skip and collect those ashes early, then that would have been a problem. It would have technically been pay to win because of a 12% XP bonus that you could have got early by accelerating the battle pass. But everyone's lost their mind and have continued to lose their mind about a cosmetic only battle pass. I get it's a $100 game with all the Ultimate Editions, all that. I get early access. I get they got optimization and all that. But like it's a cosmetic only. But I still don't understand why everyone's freaking out about this as much as it was. Like I don't think this is a big deal.
of additions was a small boost through the Battle Pass. It's important to note that the Battle Pass was not available until the launch of Season 1, which didn't come until a month and a half after the game's launch. The early access weekend for Diablo 4 arrived, and the game was in the hands of the public, allowing you to go up to level 25. This weekend was only available to players who have pre-ordered the Digital Deluxe Edition, and you could play as the Barbarian, Rogue, or Sorcerer.
By the way, having them only be able to play to level 25 for the beta was brilliant. It was honestly brilliant, because if they had the beta be uncapped and everyone gets to, which people would have, I mean, Rob would have done it in like 15 minutes. He would have already been level 100 clearing Nightmare 100s. When people got there, they would have realized the in-game was an issue way sooner, and there would have been a lot of cancels of these pre-orders.
It only allows you to play through Diablo 4's prologue in one zone, and that is Fractured Peaks. Once again, no endgame testing.
Smart.
At first, the servers were plagued with horrendous queue times and error codes. A simple explanation is that there is a repeating cycle going on where players would sit in a sometimes over hour-long queue, finally get logged into the game, to only then get disconnected and be put back in an even longer queue after about 5 to 10 minutes of—
Which is part of the point of the beta. Like, I guarantee you they were stress testing their queues and everything. And I know there's some pushback on like the launch was bad. I actually don't think the launch was bad. Like I've played a lot of launches, a lot of games. There's been a lot of queues and a lot of lag and a lot of disconnecting. Diablo 4 was not one of the bad ones. Maybe I got lucky, but I only got disconnected like twice during the whole thing. And then I saw the vast majority of other streamers were doing perfectly fine on the launch. There's a few people that get kicked out and you get stuck in queue. The first day, a couple of my buddies got kicked out and got stuck in queue for a couple hours, and it was hilarious and we laughed about it. But then after that, like there was, I don't know, the launch of D4 wasn't that bad, in my opinion. As far as these massive game launches, considering this is like their most sold product ever, I thought it was fine.
playing. This continued through most of the night until Blizzard put out a patch that seemingly fixed the problem. This angered many people because they spent additional money to play that said early access weekend, and it started to raise some eyebrows in the community.
Yeah, that's a fair enough point.
From a gameplay perspective, people were relatively happy with Diablo 4 as a game so far. But of course, there were concerns, and there were a few in particular that stood out to the community. And like a dagger coated in poison, issues that seemingly never went away. Some of these include that there isn't anything in Diablo 4 that's redefining what an ARPG can be. Tedious grinds that you're forced to do and aren't even fun the first time, including Renown, Altars of Lilith, waypoints, and instead of it being fun challenges, it was simply a Google search to find the location and run around and collect them all. The UI across—
The Altar of Lilith are so boring that no one wants to ever do them again. And honestly, I think it's annoying that if you do something in hardcore, it doesn't count for softcore. Hardcore is the harder version of it. If you do the renown in hardcore, you still have to do it in softcore, etc. So if you start like a hardcore character, like on the new season, do the renown, or at least now it's fixed, it's going to carry over. But if you would have to do it again if you had only done it for the hardcore and you had done it for the softcore, which is super annoying. It happened to me because I started with hardcore and then made softcore.
The board needed work, being forced to play online and having no offline mode, worried player bases about server stability, and it felt like Diablo 4 wasn't created with the same heart as Diablo 1 and 2 were. Little did they know, it only got much worse moving forward. The open beta weekend arrived, allowing everybody openly to play the game, and all 5 classes up to level 25. Immediately, players are noticing the difference in power between the Druid and the Necromancer, and coming to the conclusion that classes like the Barbarian and the Druid lag behind significantly
which was just wrong, by the way. Like, they didn't change enough about the Druid to make it good. I was saying this kind of in early access, like, the Druid sucks early. Like, I mean, the 1 to 70, the Druid blows. Okay, like, it's boring there. Yes, you can make it good. Yes, it can power level fast. Yes, it's probably a skill issue. But, like, the reality is the beginning of the Druid is boring and slow is what it feels like. But in-game, Druid is arguably, like, the best character in the entire game. Unless something's changed. I don't know, but Rogue probably feels better overall just from, like, beginning to end. But, like, in terms of in-game, is there a better hero than the Druid? At the moment, it has the Flicker build. It's got the Bulwark build. I know a lot of these are bugs, but like, doesn't a Bulwark still work? It hits for like 150 million or something?
In terms of kill speed, unlike the other classes leveling. The balance was so bad about the Druid that memes were being made and the class was nothing but a laughingstock.
For 17 damage.
Yes, but this was during the level 1 to 25 beta only. This is only the 125 beta.
Players feel as though that the game is missing key features such as the gem tab, skill loadouts, more bank storage, inventory filters, and more quality of life features.
This whole list is true, by the way.
That are widely seen across gaming. Between the issues with the early access and open beta weekends, players are starting to believe that the game is poorly developed, and there is a lot of fine-tuning.
The one that bothers me is this one, optional WASD movement. Blows my mind. It still blows my mind the WASD movement is not in this game or even considered. I don't understand. It's 2023, guys.
That needs to be done. Other than that, the base game of combat animations and story seemed good enough for now. After the open beta weekends, the official Diablo team releases the Into the Endgame developer update video, breaking down everything the game has to offer once you reach the end game. And developers made incredibly bold promises that were sadly never delivered upon.
Brand new activities that provide meaningful progression, no matter their playstyle.
There's going to never be an absence of something to do.
Paragon War is a place where we allow you to have a lot more depth, a lot more customization, many more options as you go. There's over 120 dungeons to play through and find in Diablo 4, and any one of them can become a nightmare dungeon.
We later found out that this was simply not true, being that there was only roughly 20 nightmare dungeons in a rotation at a time, forcing you to do the same ones over and over again. A few days later, the Diablo 4 team announces they are making significant changes to character classes, dungeon design, UI changes, and more. This leaves people very excited that the developers are listening to player feedback and are excited for the future. Through the last few months before launch, the Diablo 4 developers assure us that they're going back to their roots of Diablo 2.
Well, the initial direction was Diablo 2.
The fantasy of a dark, gothic, medieval world.
Darker and grittier, and Diablo 2 is kind of the inspiration.
We wanted to bring Diablo 4...
This was such a bad idea for them to continue to mention Diablo 2 when the fact that Diablo 2 is successful is because of, from my understanding, again, I haven't played it the whole time. I need to do that so I know what I'm talking about, but the reality of this, from my understanding, is Diablo 2 is successful because of in-game itemization and farming, whereas that's why Diablo 4 is failing. Like, they're kind of actually on the opposites ends of the spectrum here. So kind of constantly mentioning Diablo 2 is not doing them any favors.
Artistically more back towards like Diablo 2.
Have we heard this story before? Is this something that Blizzard is doing once again to tug on our nostalgia? Is history going to repeat itself like it did with Warcraft Reforged, Overwatch, and World of Warcraft Classic? The only thing left to do now is hope what they say is true and await launch day. Before you know it, the internet is absolutely slammed with Diablo 4 marketing. Whether it be the KFC collaboration, the non-stop Megan Fox...
By the way, this is the most marketed game I have ever seen. Diablo 4 was the largest marketing game of all time, which is part of the reason I think my channel did so good on the months that it was released, is because basically there's a giant funnel. Like they have all this promotion kind of basically covering the cost of customer acquisition for me. And then people go to YouTube and search up Diablo 4 because of all the promotion they see, and it ends up right with your boys. So, you know, I got to say, I'm glad they did all the promotion that they did from a selfish perspective.
Promotions, pre-launch dinner parties with big names in the gaming industry, the Diablo 4 cathedral painting in France, the Halsey Diablo 4 song, and even a launch live-action trailer. They also announced the Diablo 4 hardcore leveling competition, where the first...
This is cool, by the way, but this was also a terrible idea. So, like, from a design perspective, the level 100 race was the worst thing they could have done, because even though this was really cool in a game that would have in an otherwise universe where the game's completely solved, this is fine. But making people, not making them, but having an incentive for people to rush to level 100 and get to the part of the game that's not completed was like a terrible design strategy. Because basically level 100 plus, like, it's time to quit the game. When you hit level 100, unless you're doing Uber Lilith, it's time to quit the game. You've beat the game. So because of that, like, they literally made a race to level 100. It's like race to the end of the game, boys. So all the people that are content creators are obviously going to do the race because they want to go out and hit level 100 because you get your name on the thing and it's free PR for people like me to live stream this race. So they're going to go do it, which means all of the people talking about your game are going to get to the end of the game where the game's the worst as quick as possible. Then what are they going to talk about? Their experience on the game. So for me, it's probably not, that was not a well thought through strategy from a marketing side.
First 1,000 users to reach level 100 on hardcore will be eligible to have their battle tag engraved on a physical statue of Lilith on the Blizzard campus. Blizzard held nothing back in wanting all eyes of the world on Diablo 4, and they knew this launch was going to be a big deal for them. It was either going to make or break the company moving forward, and they were ready to
I don't think D4 is going to make or break the company, I'll be honest. I think it's one of their products. They are very large, and yes, they made the most money ever on this game. So I guarantee you that leadership is looking at one stat, which is the bottom line, and when they say, oh, this game profited more than any other Diablo game, this game was a raging 10 out of 10 success for them, I would assume.
Show the world what they had in Diablo 4. At least, that's what we thought. On June 1st of 2023, the early access launch of Diablo 4 finally arrived.
Yup.
It doesn't matter too much how amazing a game is or even how well received it is. Shareholders, executives, and accountants want to know how well a game is selling. They revealed that in just 5 days, sales of Diablo 4 had surpassed $666 million in revenue, estimating nearly 10 million game copies.
It's gonna be $1 billion game.
Not even including the additional microtransactions so heavily apparent inside the game. In corporate eyes, Diablo 4 was booming, and it was nothing short of a monumental success. It became officially Blizzard's fastest selling game of all time. So, Activision Blizzard was back on top, right? Well, that statement couldn't have been more untrue.
Yeah, but they already got the money,
launch,
so...
the internet was flooded with reviews about Diablo 4. The early game, being relatively good from a gameplay perspective, quickly dissipated as people headed into the end game. Because the truth is, Diablo 4 had no innovation and nothing truly creative toward the ARPG genre. And Blizzard simply took no risks. Tree of Whispers are the same thing as bounties from Diablo 3. They kept the same generic gambling systems. Paragon boards are just stolen content from Path of Exile and Vulcan. Nightmare dungeons are just riffs from Diablo 3. The new free choice leveling is the same thing as Diablo 3's adventure mode. Nothing...
Okay, some of these are fair, but some of these are reaching. Like, I don't see the Paragon board being a theft from Path of Exile remotely at all. I mean, Path of Exile has a static board that your character starts on a different part of the board. And it's fairly in-depth with keystones and all. It's actually more in-depth than the Paragon board. Whereas the Paragon board is individualized per different class. You have a choice of different boards. You build the board as opposed to you start on a board that's static. I actually don't see that comparison at all.
Here was brand new or innovative. It was the same reused and recycled content, and fans were simply bored of it within a few weeks' time. The most common mistake we see from games with lack of endgame presence is they make the grind to max level longer, so it gives them time to come up with something new. And what did Blizzard do? Exactly just that. One by one, they were going across the board and nerfing dungeon farms to permit anyone from leveling.
This was, I think, a lack of understanding by Blizzard. Because here's the thing. I remember people were getting upset because Shroud was out there. He found a way on stream where he was just blasting through these dungeons, going fast as possible. And some people reporting him for bugs and stuff, which I think is wildly out of the pocket. But they nerf all those modes. And the thing about it, they also nerfed like power leveling and everything. They basically don't want you to create a character and get to max level instantly. And I think part of that's because the in-game's not there yet. So they thought, okay, if it takes you a while to get to in-game, then we get to keep the player for longer. But the reality is I think you would actually keep people even longer if you could level the in-game fast. Because then what would happen is people go make a second, third character of different classes. I would actually personally like to create multiple classes and get them all the in-game. But because it takes so long for one of these characters to get to level 100, it's so boring for me to do that I don't want to, even as someone who literally plays Diablo 4 for a living, I don't want to make 5 or 10 characters, especially when we talk about season, and get them all to level 100. But if it was way easier and they didn't nerf the mob density and they allowed our cheesy dungeon tactics and stuff to work, then you could just go play the game, level your character, and then the game would be more of a sandbox of trying out builds. As it stands, it is directly in the worst position where it takes too long to get a character maxed out, okay? But not long enough that the people were able to stay in the good part of the game for long enough that they didn't get bored as soon as they did. So I think they fucked it up on both sides.
Too quickly from specific dungeons. And when that wasn't enough, they completely nerfed elite mob density across the board. One of the most fun aspects of the game. Instead of buffing the lackluster dungeons that were boring and slow, they nerfed the fun ones. They continued to do this for nearly everything in the game moving forward. Build diversity was the same result. Across all classes, you could see a clear-cut pattern in people using the same exact builds over and over again. Instead of buffing weak abilities to bring them in line with the strong ones, they simply nerfed the abilities that were performing too well, making everything feel boring. And with the price of recost and the non-existence of skill loadouts or a dual specialization system in play, it was too risky to constantly be testing.
This is another massive fuck up. Like, they 100% needed to have, and I've said this since the beginning, they need to have a reset Paragon board button and for each individualized board. So you can reset and change your individual, or they need to have an armory system. Every single game, including the mobile game of Diablo, has an armory type of system, right? So I don't understand why there's not a way to like save a build and then change to the... It would seem like a staple. I mean, Diablo 3 has it, and Mordo has it. Most of the MMOs I've played have a way of like saving a build where you can go from one build to another. And because Diablo 4 is so difficult to change builds in, it seems like a gigantic... They could have got more player time with they don't have to create more content. People would have tried the same build or different builds in the same content they already had in the game if they just gave people a way to change up the sandbox nature of it more, which is the class, which class and skills and stuff you're playing, as opposed to continually have to play the same build over and over. It would have been less boring. I don't understand why this isn't done already.
In theory, crafting new builds. It was too tedious to respec hundreds of Paragon points manually one by one.
I hate doing this shit.
Flat out too expensive.
I straight up hate doing this.
Having to grind out countless legendary aspects, uniques, and perfect affix rolls on every piece of gear was something that took too much time. By this time, players were reaching level 65 plus, and the level pacing drastically slowed down, and so did the excitement of good loot rewards as well.
So the problem with Diablo 4 is that after you spend about 80 hours into the game, all of the gear upgrades that you can get are so minimal, there's nothing else to do.
So the time it took to level vastly increased, and the rewards and purpose for leveling became so much smaller. It's very obvious to everybody now that Diablo 4 has no endgame, and it was heavily front-loaded. The minor endgame testing, mixed with the constant changing of development teams, and major lack of inexperience and workplace professionalism, was finally starting to take its toll. During this time, the in-game cash shop is being flooded with skins and cosmetic options available for purchase, even some cases where the cosmetic armor bought with real money.
Again, I still don't think the cosmetics had anything to do with the game's performance in terms of how people feel about the game. I think the vast majority of people don't give a fuck whether some other guy, this isn't a social game, by the way. This isn't like an MMO, really. I mean, this is a solo self-find game for all intents and purposes. So I really don't think other players give a fuck what some other player spent $20 of his hard-earned money to buy a helmet. Like, no one fucking cares. I'm still hearing this point. Even now, it's like, I really don't think people care if some other guy bought some cosmetics.
Money would be bugged and not even appear on your character. The hardcore player-based drama is at an all-time high, with players dying constantly to server instability,
By the way, that Quinn death is the biggest bullshit I've ever seen in this entire game. He died on a hardcore while loading. He was in the bubble after Nightmare Dungeon. He teleported to town. He was loading into town, crashed, and came back. He's dead. Like, it's 0% skill issue, 100% a game issue, and people are still giving him shit for it. It's unbelievable.
And things being completely out of their control through bugs and poor optimization of the game. Even worse, to confirm your place as a winner in the race, you had to tweet the Diablo Twitter account a Diablo 4 hashtag, your full battle net and battle tag, and lastly, a picture proving you reached level 100. The amateur middle school system of confirming a challenge so important that hundreds of thousands of people are participating in ends up being a massive mistake, and they make errors announcing the wrong winners. This showed a major lack of effort and care in a multi-billion-dollar company, and once again, amateur or brand new developers making huge mistakes, skating by and doing things just good enough once again. There were even several websites out there that tracked the progress of the hardcore characters with having zero budget, so surely Blizzard could have done it themselves. It became too difficult to manage storage inside of a full loot ARPG game. Between gems, legendaries, and aspects, rare items, uniques, inventory was quickly flooded within minutes of grinding out a single dungeon, and players demanded more room for their other characters. When Blizzard finally responded over a month later, they stated they couldn't add more because it creates a lot of memory overhead.
You know, I'm still split on this answer, by the way. I really appreciated the amount of, like, honesty that this answer had, which is we can't do it because basically our coding's dog shit, is what more or less what this says. I mean, in the not nice way, that's what this says, okay? But the fact that they actually said that to me is like mind-blowingly honest. So I want to give them props for that, which makes me feel bad. Like, I don't want to bite the hand that feeds, because I love it when they actually say the truth. But the fact that it's expensive to create an extra inventory issue, like I said when they announced this, and like I'll say now, is not our issue. Like, it has 0% of a player issue. It doesn't matter if it's expensive. You know what does matter? It's not fun to have full inventory. You know what I mean? So it's like, this is what's great. I love to hear the truth, but I kind of didn't give a fuck.
When you see another player in game, you load them and their entire stash filled with all of their
Which is
items.
mind-blowing in a game
like
that
gem
basically
tab,
isn't an
leaderboard,
MMO.
Stash tabs, loot filters, ability loadouts, all announced to be added in future expansions, sometimes as far as 6 months to a year from now.
Which is crazy.
1 month after the game launches, they hosted a developer live stream bringing us all some crucial updates to try and calm the community down. To kick off the show, they gave us a 30-minute segment on their new Diablo Immortal class.
Which is mind-blowing to me that they opened a Diablo 4 announcement within the March. Just do 2 separate streams. Like, dude, I do not understand sometimes the PR decisions. Like, why? I understand you want to plug in more, though, because maybe people are like, okay, I don't like D4, I'll play in more, though, and you can get some more, you know, downloads there. But in a Diablo 4 stream, you plug in, it just, that one, I couldn't believe it when I saw
that. The whole lore behind the mobile game right now. They also finally showed off the Battle Pass monetization and the seasonal blessings that are implemented to help us quickly gain crafting materials, gold, and experience points more efficiently. This is in regard to having us create
Which, by the way, like 90% of these are worthless because who cares about crafting material? Like, when's the last time you were out of crafting materials?
Whole new characters inside of seasonal realms. And believe it or not, those completely backfired as well. When you spent Smoldering Ash to increase the amount of gold or materials that you would gain, there was a bug that would increase the amount of costs of everything as well by the same exact percentages. So it became nothing but an illusion of choice. And to even acquire all of your Smoldering Ash, you actually had to obtain max level to acquire them all, leaving you a system that is nothing but broken and contradictory.
I'm not completely opposed to like max level unlocking the final ash. I thought it was fine to unlock the ashes along the way because you can choose to do the experience ones first if you want. But I get where he's going with it.
Only half of your renown carried over, and half of the brand new.
This was stupid. Like, not choosing to not having the renown fully carry over is stupid. No one wants to do the renown. I haven't seen a single person say they like the renown. The only argument to redoing the renown is to have a reason to do the side quest. And the only reason that you want to force people to do the side quest is a lack of content, which in a new fucking season, it's all about new content. So if you have to reforce people through the bullshit side quest in order to have enough content for a season, there's a problem. So for me, that's just, I'm glad that that's not, and going forward, we don't have to redo the renown, but it's like, look, if you're willing to admit it now, like, why didn't you just believe everybody for season 1?
Content and class changes in season 1, was locked to the seasonal realms and was forbidden on the eternal realms. Meaning that if you wanted all of these brand new changes and updates, you had to start all over and create a whole new character.
Which again, people were freaking about having to create a new character, which that is a skill issue of the player. Welcome to Diablo and ARPGs. I'm not even a veteran in this space, and I understood very fully well that seasonal character, seasonal realm. I don't understand why this is a problem. I don't. If you don't want to start a new character, play on the Eternal Realm. All of those aspects and all the seasonal aspects, they're coming back to the Eternal Realm. The only thing you're not going to get is the cage hearts and stuff, okay? Whatever the seasonal busted mechanic is. And the seasonal quest, you're not really missing anything. There's not really much seasonal quest. So I don't understand why people are surprised you have to create a new character for a new season. I get that it's a more casual RPG targeted at a much wider demographic with bigger marketing, so you're pulling in people not used to this mechanic, but this is not new in this space remotely. So the outrage to this one was crazy to me.
Then forced to go on to seasonal realms, and players were quickly flooded with additional monetization. They even coincidentally made the paid accelerated battle pass button the largest icon and glow red on the homepage. They also coincidentally didn't add a confirmation button so that if you accidentally clicked it, you spent your money without any...
That wasn't even the real issue. The real issue was that the focus, it was the first one focused on controllers. So when you use the controller, the first button you press would immediately activate the battle pass with no confirmation. That was the real issue. The size of the button is whatever. The confirmation's still a bummer. But like the real issue was it would focus that button first on controllers. So if you accidentally even hit a button...
Warning. Bugs even went rampant through Season 1, with people having the ability to trade hundreds of millions of gold, legendaries, and even unique items between the Eternal and Seasonal realms, completely destroying hard-earned player progression.
Which would matter if there's an actual economy in trading, which there's not.
By this point, players were at their limit. Metacritic scores plummeted, and the population slowly dwindled down to nothing within a week of Season 1 being launched. And with the final nail in the coffin, Larian Studios released Baldur's Gate 3 on August 3rd of 2023. Easily being the frontrunner for the Game of the Year, it knocked Diablo 4 out. The game had longer replayability, no egregious monetization, good developers, better RPG aspects, innovative design with stable servers, and a real...
I mean, that's great, and BG3 is great, but I don't think this is the reason Diablo 4 has problems. Like, I don't think that BG3 was so good that it killed Diablo 4. Like, Diablo 4 killed Diablo 4. I think all these other game releases were just people were bored already, so they're going to go play them. But the boredom of Diablo 4 is what's killed Diablo 4.
Real character creator and gameplay sections with freedom of choice throughout your entire playthrough. Most of these things Blizzard used to take pride in, but those days are now over. A game that just a few months ago had a population of almost 7 million concurrent active
Which is
players
actually
at
crazy.
once,
That's actually
has now
crazy.
lost more than 99% of its total population and is shrinking more and more by the day. So what was the exact cause of Diablo 4's failure? Was it the constant change in development teams before launch day? The loss of key figures within the company due to the allegations and walkouts? Developers disliking the game they're creating and the increased malice between leaders and company team members? Was it the constant delays, the microtransactions being forced onto players? Or is it just the simple fact
Again, it's
that...
not the microtransactions, and they're not forced on players. Like, we keep coming back to the cosmetics. The cosmetics did not ruin this game.
Blizzard has completely lost its touch, and the era of this once King of Kings is now over. No one really knows exactly. But one thing is for sure. No game in history has had almost 7 million concurrent active players at one time, and within a couple months, get reduced down to less than 40,000 active players throughout the entire day.
Is that true?
99.4% loss in player base count.
But where are we getting these stats from? Does he have it in the... Okay, it's not in here. I would be curious to know where that 99% stat is coming from.
This is why Diablo 4 is the biggest disappointment in recent gaming history.
He makes some good cases,
Hopefully heading into 2024, they can bring loads of improvements into the game and maybe flip the script on this whole situation. Maybe, just maybe, we can have a solid ARPG to play. But just remember, the new Path of Exile is on its way, and it could very well be too late. Have you played Diablo 4? What are your thoughts and feelings? What do you think is the biggest mistake they made?
Have I played Diablo 4? Yes. My thoughts and feelings, I think he's pretty much nailed it. He had a lot of really good points in here. As for the biggest mistake they made, I think it's in game. Like we could point to cosmetics, we could point to other games coming out, we could point at like the sexual harassment lawsuits and the stock falling. We could point at a lot of these things, but I literally think it's the people who buy and want to play the game, they just want to play a good ARPG. Like I don't think when someone buys the game, they're thinking about the harassment lawsuits. I don't think they're thinking about cosmetics in the game. I think someone's just like, I want to play a fun game for myself. It's a very selfish, easy perspective of I want to spend my money to buy a game that I will like. It is that simple. People are really not that complicated. And the biggest mistake they made was not making the game fun enough, long enough. That is it. If I had to guess, the lack of in-game is the biggest issue. If I had
Let
to
me know in
put
the
one
comment
thing.
section below. I want to give another massive thank you to our YouTube channel members who support the channel directly and keep this dream alive. You all allow me to create longer, more fulfilling content for you like this one. I really love making content like this, and if you guys enjoyed it, please be sure to like, leave a comment, or even share the video, as I would love to bring you all more content like this in the future. Until the very end, my name is Sky from the Comeback Kids, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.
That was a great video. Shout out to the Comeback Kids. I will obviously have a link to this in the description down below. Give them a like, give them a subscribe. It's cool to see this video from somebody who I think he got his biggest pop off from what I was seeing, looking at his channel off D4 just like I did. So I kind of wanted to see his opinion on it, because we both uploaded D4 content for the pop off. And then if you go look at his channel now, he's done Starfield, sort of like I did. You know, he kind of had a similar pattern, to be honest. So shout out to the boy. He's had a couple banger of videos. That one looked like that one did pretty well as well. So good conversation from it there. I want to make one additional point, which is that, yes, Diablo 4 has problems right now. However, I have seen games that went from bad to good. Okay, here's my copium. I'm going to get my bag for copium. You can say copium all you want. But No Man's Sky is an example of a game that went from trash. I actually tried to refund it multiple times, and Sony said they would ban me if I refunded it from my PlayStation. So I didn't. Okay, but No Man's Sky, what they did is when all the bad press came up, and they got hammered arguably even worse than Diablo 4, okay? And the game was bad on release. In fact, so bad that they even said that multiplayer, but they didn't. And they continued to lie about post-release until people proved it didn't have multiplayer. It was very bad, okay? I'm talking bad release. It went from horrible to one of the best, if not the best, space game of all time. No Man's Sky is actually ridiculously good now because they've done update after update after update and continually add the things not only they said they would have, but the things it could have. So I'll leave with a little bit of hope, as he mentioned in this video, that Diablo 4 in its current state is not good. Yeah, I would say that freely, no matter if I have a channel based upon it or not. It's not good, okay? However, if you give them some time, which we're all going to give them the time anyway because we're not playing the game probably, eventually the game could be good if they recognize all of the errors we've all been telling them. They fix as much of it as they can, which at this point, I don't even know how I would do it for all of it. Okay, but you add an in-game, you add more social systems, I think is a big part of it. You make the overworld matter, better itemization in the game, more feels good. People will come back to the game. Games have recovered before. Diablo 4 could still do it. But that's my opinion. I'll have a link down below to the video and all that. Consider liking this video, subscribing if you want to, or like and subscribe to the original author of the video, The Comeback Kids. That's it. Love you all. See you on the next one.